I would say by June. By June. I think we see Brandon Sproat before Blake Tidwell, but the key for them is AAA. AAA is where they both sucked. They both sucked. But when I take a look at Brandon Sproat's numbers in the minor leagues, you got to like him a lot more than you like Blake Tidwell. And here's why. Brandon Sproat flew up the ladder. Let's look at his strikeout numbers overall. He had 10.1 strikeouts per 9 innings across those different levels. But let's take a look at each level by level. Starts off in single A. After 6 games, gets called up to double A. In single A, he was a stud. 1.07 ERA. He had 11.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. Quickly gets the call up to double A. Across 11 games, a 2.45 ERA, while striking out 11.1 per 9 innings. And only 2.2 walks per 9 innings in double A. In single A, he struggled. He had 5.7, quickly recouped that with 2.2 walks in double A. He kept it down to only 3.5 walks per 9 innings in triple A, but only 6.6. It was only 6.6 strikeouts per 9 in triple A with a 7.85 ERA. 7 games, 24-year-old kid. Well, at that time, 23. Not panicking, especially what I've seen from him in his one spring training appearance. Brandon Sproat touched 99 miles per hour, added another pitch to his arsenal over the offseason. Brandon Sproat could change the complexion of this rotation as long as he succeeds. I think if he gets, I mean, we saw with Christian Scott. Christian Scott last year got called up by what? I think it was June. He joined the rotation at a time where the Mets didn't even really need him in the rotation, but David Stearns was like, he's ready. He's ready. Give Christian Scott the shot. Give him the ball. Give him the shot. Brandon Sproat, same way. That's why they didn't sign a guy like Jose Quintana, who's now with the Milwaukee Brewers. Thanks to my colleague over at Fansided, Robert Murray, breaking the news today. But, that's why they didn't go after a guy like Jose Quintana, even after Sean Manaea going down with an injury, even after Frankie Montas going down with an injury, because you have Blake Tidwell and Brandon Sproat down there in the minors ready. Well, at least they're hoping that as long as they have success in AAA, that they will be ready to make their debut at some point in 2025. So I would say somewhere between 6 and 10 starts. If Brandon Sproat is doing well at the AAA level, he will get the call up after 6 to 10 starts in AAA. And Blake Tidwell, I think they need to see a little bit more to Blake Tidwell. He's a year younger. He had more games under his belt in AAA last year, and he struggled a lot in AAA. But I mean, still, you got to like what you see out of him. I mean, in the AA last year, he had a 2.41 ERA across 7 games. And then he got that call up, pitched 19 games in AAA, and had a 5.93 ERA. Not fun. Not fun. But Blake Tidwell, I'm not buying in too much because he walks a lot of guys. Last year in AAA, he had 5.6 walks per 9 innings. Through his minor league career, across 56 games, his walks per 9 is at 4.9. He's still a strikeout guy. He looked well in his first spring training outing. But I think Brandon Sproat he'll be definitely making his major league debut as long as he performs in AAA. And I think he will. In his spring training debut, didn't allow a hit, didn't allow a walk, didn't allow a base runner, 2 innings of work, 1 strikeout, touched 99 with his fastball. He's got a cutter, he's got a changeup, he's got a curveball, he's got a slider. He's got a ton of pitches in his arsenal, and that sinker too as well he's got. So he's got 6 different pitches. He can touch 99. He's got a lights-out slider. He's got a very good changeup. I think we'll see Brandon Sproat in the Mets rotation at some point in 2025. No doubt about it. Somewhere between 6 and 10 successful AAA starts. No matter what is going on with the Mets rotation, we're going to see Brandon Sproat. Now let's talk about the Mets rotation in general with Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas going down with those injuries. Sean Manaea, I'm not too worried about. It's not a throwing injury. It's not an arm injury. So I'm not worried about Sean Manaea. I think we're going to see him mid-April. That's when they expect to see him. I believe that. And I'm sometimes skeptical about what the Mets say injury-wise, but I mean, it's not an arm injury. So I'm not too worried about Sean Manaea. And in addition, he's made 30-plus starts in 4 consecutive years. So he's not a guy who usually gets hurt a lot. Knock on wood. That Sean Manaea makes his start in mid-April, but, I think we will. I think we will see. But now that leaves you Kodai Senga as your 1, probably Clay Holmes as your number 2, David Peterson as your number 3. All 3 guys have looked great in spring training, by the way, especially Clay Holmes. We're going to talk about him in depth. And then your 4, 5, 6, they can even go 4, 5, at least till Manaea comes back. But 4, 5, 6 will be Paul Blackburn, who sucked in his first spring training start. I don't love it. Tyler McGill, who, I'm not opposed to being in that rotation. And then Griffin Cannon. Your 4, 5, 6 suck. Luckily, the Mets have a loaded lineup, and that could supplement those 4, 5, 6 guys. But 1, 2, 3, I think they're in a pretty good position. They're in a pretty good position. And that's why I think Brandon Sproat will undoubtedly make his MLB debut, because of the 4, 5, 6 guys. Even when Manaea comes back, 2 of those guys will still be in that rotation. I'm not even going to waste my time talking about those 3, because all 3 of them, I'm not high on. I'm not high on. I'm worried about this Mets rotation. I can't lie. But the front 3, I love. I love the front 3. I think Kodai Senga can be an ace. I've said it multiple times. He was top 5 in ERA in the National League in 2023. He finished 7th in Cy Young voting in 2023. He had over 200 strikeouts in 2023. He was an NL All-Star in 2023. He had a sub-3 ERA in 2023. He had 12 wins in 2023. I think Kodai Senga can be an ace for the Mets. I really do. And then Clay Holmes. I mean, I've gone over Clay Holmes' analytical numbers, but we can keep diving into him. Clay Holmes, 1, let's talk about his spring training starts. He's only allowed 1 hit. 1 hit so far in 6 innings of work. And there's one guy who I got my eyes glued on in spring training, and it's Clay Holmes, because I want to see what can he do as a starter. And so far, so good. Only 2 base runners, one hit, 1 walk allowed. He's got 5 Ks through his 6 innings of work. He's getting ground balls. And the Mets have a great defense, luckily. Alonso, say what you want about him. He's one of the best scoopers in MLB, if not the best, at first base. He improves every year defensively. I don't love Jeff McNeil at second base. I was about to say I don't love him. But you know what? He's a pretty good defender over there at second base. He's an above-average defender. Francisco Lindor, arguably the best defensive shortstop in all of MLB. We all know what Lindor can do defensively at short. Mark Vientos, is he great? No. Is he terrible? No. And then in center field, you got Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri, Brandon Nimmo in left field, who used to be a center fielder. He can cover a lot of ground out there in left field, especially coming off his injury. Right field, yes. Juan Soto, not great. But, outside of Juan Soto and Mark Vientos, I'm not really worried. I'm not even really worried about Mark Vientos. I'm really only worried about Juan Soto defensively. So I think Clay Holmes can have a very good year with the Mets. Let's get into his analytical numbers. And first off, I want to mention this before we get into the analytics. Everyone with the Yankees fans are like, "Oh, Clay Holmes sucked last year. He had 3.14 ERA. He had a 2.68 ERA across his 4 years with the Yankees. He did not suck with the Yankees. I've said it multiple times. There's Ronel Blanco. You have Seth Lugo, Michael King. There's numerous relievers just last year that had sub-3 ERAs as starting pitchers. Now let's get into his analytical numbers real quick. This is why I love Clay Holmes. You look at his bat-to-ball profile. His ground ball percentage was 64.6 last year in 2024. 66.7 throughout his career. Just to put that in retrospect, his 64.7 ground ball percentage, or 64.6, Jesus. 64.6 ground ball percentage. Max Fried had a 59.2 ground ball percentage. Max Fried had a 21.7 line drive percentage and a 16.1 fly ball percentage. Just last year, Clay Holmes had a 15.2 fly ball percentage and an 18% line drive percentage. I kind of like those numbers. I really like those numbers. I love those numbers, actually. And then his hard hit rate, he was ranked in the 69th percentile, which is above average. His barrel percentage was in the great. It was in the 84th percentile in MLB last year. His whiff percentage was in the 84th percentile last year. His fastball velo was in the 88th percentile last year. Listen, is he a strikeout pitcher? No, but he's a ground ball pitcher. And what do starting pitchers kind of need to be? Ground ball pitchers. when you have a ground ball pitcher in the closing role, it doesn't pan out too well. And you look at Clay Holmes' numbers last year, out of all the runs he did allow, he didn't really even allow that many runs, but you look at his earned runs compared to his runs allowed. Last year, he allowed 22 runs for himself. 29 of those runs, he let up 29 runs, only 22 earned. So he had 7 runs allowed that were not on him. Why? Because the Yankees' defense was terrible. Gleyber Torres is not a good second baseman. Jazz Chisholm Jr., as great as he is up the middle, he was never a third baseman. The outfield, I mean, they had Aaron Judge playing center for a reason because they didn't have a center fielder. Alex Verdugo is great in left field. You got to give him credit. And then Juan Soto, I just said he's not a great defender. So he didn't have a good defense behind him with the Yankees. And they put him in the closing role. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He's not by any stretch. He only had 68 strikeouts in 60 games. And in 2023, only 71 strikeouts in 63 games. And then when they took Clay Holmes out of the closing role, he turned into a very good pitcher again. I mean, Clay Holmes in the playoffs was great. He wasn't closing. So right there, that tells you. I don't think the Yankees really used him right. And that's no knock on well, it is a knock on the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees used Clay Holmes right at all. Not one bit. He's not a closer. He's a ground ball guy. I'm not saying they should have used him as a starter, but they shouldn't have used him as a closer. I mean, after he got pulled from the closing role, he posted a 2.25 ERA. 2.25. And then in the postseason, he only allowed 3 runs across 13 games. Clay Holmes is not a closer. I know. Is he a bona fide great starter? No. But he can be a good starter. So that's what I'll say about Clay Holmes. Bullpen, I like it. AJ Minter's throwing. That's a great sign. Daniel Nunez, he'll be back healthy. He was great with the Mets last year. Ryan Stanek was dominant down the stretch. And in the postseason, he was really well too. You got to love what you're, hopefully going to get out of Edwin Diaz, because we can't forget he missed the entire 2023 season. So to expect him to just, snap his fingers and go right back to his 2022 self after missing an entire year, I think is just stupid. So I think Edwin Diaz now with another year back under his belt, I think we can see Edwin Diaz kind of be a shade of what he was in 2022. We don't even need him to be what he was in 2022. It would be nice. It would be awesome. It would be phenomenal. We don't need him to be that. We need to put up like a sub 2.3 ERA, and that's good. It's one of the best closers in baseball. And you got AJ Minter, like I said before, who's going to be a great 8th inning guy for Edwin Diaz. You got Reed Garrett coming back. He's a flamethrower. And then Jose Butto, who had a sub 2.5 ERA out of the bullpen last year, 2.6 ERA overall. I like the Mets bullpen. I do. And I love their lineup. I mean, you got Brandon Nimmo hitting 5th. I'm probably hitting 4th. But Mark Vientos hitting 5th. And he's a guy who hit 27 home runs in 111 games last year. I went off in the postseason. I went over the Yankees projected lineup, so let me do my Mets projected lineup before I wrap up. It's going to be Francisco Lindor leading off. Going to be Juan Soto batting second. Then Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos. You keep that righty-lefty matchup. Jesse Winker in that DH spot batting 6th with Starlin Marte out. I think we're going to see Jesse Winker kind of get that everyday DH role. After him, you got to go Francisco Alvarez batting 7th. Have that righty behind the lefty, like I said before, will be huge. Jeff McNeil batting 8th, and then Tyrone Taylor, Jose Siri in that 9 spot. And then even when they platoon, I think we're going to see that lineup stay, because when Marte does come back, when he is hopefully healthy at some point, you can keep him in the 6th hole, because if a righty reliever comes in against Marte, they're going to pull him. They're going to put Jesse Winker in. Same thing with center field, Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri. So yeah, that's all I'll say on the Mets. That's all I'll say on the Mets today. Luis-Angel Acuna, thankfully healthy. No injury scares. He was taking ground balls the other day. He'll be okay. Got hit by a pitch, exited the game early. Luckily, no major injuries with Acuna. He'll be okay. He'll likely be starting the season in AAA. But I do want to talk about Brett Baty before I wrap up. Brett Baty going off. And spring training Brett Baty is probably one of the best baseball players of all time. He kills it in spring training. But listen, Baty's got to prove himself at the major league level. He has to. He's sucked so far in the major league level. Only a 229 batting average through 169 games. 215 batting average, actually. Even worse. 215 batting average through 116 regular season games with the Mets. But, I mean, in spring training, he's been off the charts. He's hitting 438, a slugging percentage of 875. He changed his approach. He's trying to hit more line drives. You know, Carlos Mendoza even said he's got a lot of pop. You want to see more line drives out of this kid. And so far in spring training, he's showing that. So you got to love what you're seeing out of Brett Beatty in spring training. I know it's only spring training, but he needs to build up confidence. And what he's doing right now, he's building up confidence. So you got to love that. Change his approach. You can check out his little interview with Foul Territory. You know, he talked about how he's changing that approach more in depth, but basically what he said, you know, he just wants to hit more line drives. He wants to get the ball in the air more. He's been a ground ball guy. He's been hitting too many ground balls, way too many ground balls throughout his 3 years in the bigs. Needs to change. And don't forget, he's only 25 years old. Only 25 years old. And if Brett Beatty becomes a force for the Mets, I mean, that's 6 great hitters. 6 great hitters. And he has that potential. He does have that potential. But we'll see what happens. All right. Mets also, another tie for the Mets today in spring training. Another tie. Tied with the Marlins 1-1. But Kodai Senga looked great. Pitched 2 innings, even wanted to throw some more in the bullpen after his start. Only allowed 2 hits, 2 strikeouts. You know, clean inning from him. David Peterson pitched 3 innings today, only allowed 1 hit and racked up 5 strikeouts. So hopefully that wasn't a fluke from David Peterson when he pitched to a 2.90 ERA. And then Max Kranick. You got to talk about Max Kranick a little bit because Max Kranick, if he does what he does, if he continues what he's doing in spring training, he's going to be on the big league roster in the bullpen. Maybe even the starting rotation. Who knows? I mean, so far in spring training, he's got 7.1 innings under his belt. Hasn't allowed a single run. Only allowed 5 hits. He's got numerous strikeouts. He's got 8 strikeouts and 7.1 innings. Hasn't allowed a single run. Only allowed 3 hits. No walks. So maybe Max Kranick's got a shot. Whether it's a bullpen arm, starting arm, we'll see. All right. Keep your eye out. Fansided.com/author Nolan. We're doing a lot more writing. Yeah, you know, that's what happens when they pay you more. It's nice. You got to write more. All right. That's all it is for me today. I'll see you guys probably at some point Wednesday. We're going to go live again, get more in-depth analysis on the Yankees like George Lombard. I want to do a little bit of stuff on him. We'll talk a little bit more about Brett Beatty and Brandon Sproat. It'll be very prospect-centric, very young-centric podcast this upcoming Wednesday. So keep an eye out for that sometime around now on Wednesday night. All right, that's it from me, guys. Thank you for you guys watching, whether you're on X, YouTube, or listen back on Spotify. I'm out of here. Thank you. Deuces.